So I heard you're ready to learn castle skip. It's going to be a lot of practice, but I'm here to help you. So you start off Twinkle Park like any other. Couple hammer flips, hit the buttons, and right here when we get above the water, let's just break this down for a second. This is a trick that has to be done in a fluid motion. Every red line is where we're going to land. Every yellow arrow is where we are going to flip and jump. So it's a jump after landing by the pool, a run towards the outside of the door, a flip up on top of the door, a flip up on top of the door frame, a flip up on top of the invisible wall by the purple, a jump into a flip up on top of the roof, a flip up on top of the second roof, a jump over to the yellow line, and then a flip up. Let's play it out. And that's the trick. Alright, everybody like, subscribe, and yeah, no, don't worry, I'm not going to do you like that. Let's get into this in a little more detail. Alright, so let's take this from the top. Let's understand how Amy moves. She moves fastest while falling down. Therefore, we use a lot of jumps and flips to keep her in a state where she is moving down in the air. That's how we get the fastest we can be, and the entire idea of moving Amy is to maintain that speed. Amy can turn, but it is difficult for her to make sharp turns. Therefore, our idea with Amy, curve these sharp turns. Just with practice, you'll understand the limits of those turns and how you can maintain this speed while taking the sharpest turns you can. But we have to understand this concept because right away, we don't want to jump forward and make a 90-degree turn with Amy towards this button. That's an easy way to lose most of your speed, if not all of your speed, to the point where you can't even flip. We want to come in at an angle when we're landing, curve to the right, make sure we're facing the direction in which we're landing to maintain that full speed. No matter how much I try to tell you in this video, nothing will compare to you watching those inputs, the camera triggers that are pressed, and the exact inputs, and then just go and break it down one step at a time and try it yourself. That is the best possible way. Now that we've kept our full speed while heading towards this first jump, let's take note that when Amy hammer flips, that is the optimal time to change her direction as she keeps full speed while doing a very sharp input change. As we come in full speed towards this first jump, we're going to flip and immediately curve left. Definitely take note of the input here. We want to cut left after this first jump and maintain an input to this degree or more to the left. As she flips, that's when you can make your turn. When she's landing, you have to maintain the same direction to keep that speed. We are aiming to land on the door and immediately into another hammer flip right after we land. If you cut too sharp or hammer flip too early off the first jump, you might get something like this where it just eats your input. This is a bunch of various failed attempts that you can use for reference to see which mistake you might be making when you're attempting this. Once again, always look at the inputs, camera triggers, and your positioning. Once you get the hang of the door flip, now it's time to talk about the door frame. As you can see, the peak of the door frame is actually two sloped angles meeting at a certain point. You need to land on this first slope and run for just a moment before flipping again. You can rub up against the wall to help push you down if you feel like you're gonna go too far. This turn in the air after the door is probably the most difficult turn. As long as you land on this incline and run for just a moment, you should be able to flip and keep your speed. This one certainly takes practice. I personally feel like this is the most difficult part of the trick. Alright, so now you've practiced getting your momentum, you flipped off the door frame. Now we're aiming to land here in this spot on this purple wall. There's an invisible wall here, and of course I'm going to show you where exactly that invisible wall is. So please study this little segment right here to completely understand your actual area you are able to walk on. So starting from this stationary position in the corner, this part's a little harder than it looks. You really don't have a ton of room to do this, and if you touch up against that purple wall, you are going to lose speed and not be able to hammer flip right away. The next jump's a pretty simple one. You just turn back as you do the jump. There is a reason why we go so far forward and turn back at a certain point, because the position which we land allows a perfect full momentum jump forward so that we can land with full speed, ready to do a flip off this roof and onto the fence. If you were to stand still and do a full jump forward with hammer speed and flip off the roof, you would never make it. That's why it's so important to jump off that roof with a hammer flip, because it's required. You gain that little bit of extra speed that's going to put you over the top and get you onto that fence wall. On this attempt, I get extra height off the door frame. That's because I flipped early enough that I was still on the incline. It gives you extra height. You can actually use that and just go right into a hammer flip off the invisible wall. This takes quite a bit of practice as well, though. It's an advanced strat. But I trust that you'll be able to do it. Also, it's important to note that if you walk too close to this edge here, it just pushes you off. This last jump can certainly be tricky, but nothing a little bit of knowledge and practice can't get you through. So Amy can actually flip on a couple frames after she starts to fall off a ledge. That's the kind of flip you're going to need to make it to that fence. I like to run in a straight line and just cut off the edge right towards the end. You want to run as far as possible without losing your speed on that wall before walking off, doing your flip in the air, landing up by the fence. Once you land up here, you can kind of settle in. You're good, you're up. Here is an example of why you can't just jump forward at this point and expect to make it up. You will just simply never get the height without the previous flips to keep your momentum. Once you're up by the fence, all you have to do now is a short jump, kind of at an angle because you don't want to touch the wall. We know how touching walls can screw up our air acceleration when we're trying to gain hammer speed. And once we land on the other side of the fence with hammer speed, you just do a flip right over or through it. Here is an example of an advanced strat where you actually land up by the fence with full run speed, and you could just instantly do a flip right up and over the fence. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. I hope I helped you learn at least a little bit of this trick or about Amy in general, and I'll leave you guys off with just one more full run through of this trick being done successfully. Do not feel discouraged if you run into roadblocks during this trick. Every single step of this trick took me hours and hours of practice. It took about 8 full hours before I was able to even get up to the roof once. So just be persistent. That sounds ridiculous, but it really does take that much time. Just be persistent. You can do it. If you've already played Amy and you understand, you're coming from a better place than I did. I knew nothing about Amy when I first attempted this.